One of the questions was, how do you decide the radius when you create a separation of frequencies? Well, I believe that whoever asks that question doesn't really understand frequency separation, because the idea behind separating an image into frequencies is to be able to have a low frequency that contains the shape and a high frequency that contains the texture. So the why we do this is because the process in itself does nothing to the image. I can separate it, right? And it's the same image. It doesn't do anything. So why am I separating the image? Why am I adding 2 pixel layers that is going to make my image twice as heavy? Why? Whenever I ask why, people say, well, because I want to separate the texture from the... No, that's what you're doing. So why are you doing that? You're doing that in order to work on the texture separated from the shape. Why? Because most of the times when we are working on texture, we end up ruining the shape. So the idea is to have in the high the texture that you want to work with after the separation. So in the low, being the opposite filter, we need to blur, or in my case I use median, okay, until the texture that I want to work with disappears. For example, I want to work with the hair inside the nose, or I want to work with the lines in the lips. So I need to blur until all that texture that I want to work with disappears. It doesn't matter if you use median or if you use Gaussian blur, it's the same thing. See, the hair is not disappearing, so I need more. So that's how you know the radius that you're going to use. And it's never the same radius because your images are all different. The focus is different. The lens is going to be a different lens. The close you are to the model, the crop, the angle, the light, everything changes. So the radius is going to change too. In this case, I would definitely go with the 14 radius in median, because that gets rid of most of the texture that I want to work with, except the big ones like this. That I will probably work it with an empty layer. Why? Because if I keep blurring, then I don't keep the edges intact. So I compromise the big huge hole in the forehead. So I create the low, and now I create the high using apply image, where I create the opposite of the low. So I need to add it to the image, and the difference I want inverted because I want the opposite. And linear light. So now I'm going to show what I'm talking about. I can use now the current layer, right? I can use the separation to even out the texture, right? Fill in the dark spots with light texture. All the no texture holes there, I can fill them in, right? But I won't be able to fill this one out because the hole is still there, see? So I either have to work on that hole in a separate layer, empty layer, enlighten, or I have to work on it with dodge and burn. Why? Because it's too big for the separation. So is the separation wrong? No. You choose the radius. There's no right or wrong. You choose the radius because you are separating the image because you want to work on texture separated from shape. So you choose the radius in the way it works for your image and for what you want to do with your image.
Are you using different separation radiuses for different parts of the face?
No,
Or for the hairs?
no, that would be an overkill. So I just do one radius, and whatever is left out, I do it on an empty layer. Whoa, when it goes fluo is because you are in all the layers. I mean, separation makes your life easier with hard texture, right? But you don't need it. It's not a necessary step of the retouching process, no matter how much the gurus want you to believe that. It's not like that. You don't need it. The lips I did before were completely separation free. Sometimes it's actually more efficient to not use separation. See, like this. It doesn't matter how much I try, it won't go away because it's in the low too. So I need to go here, darken, current and below, and actually clone it off. I always use a combination between frequency separation and empty layers.